I'm supposed to be his example. But I spoke with him a few days ago and he said to me about this egg thing. He said, Dad, he's a cheat. Okay, and we're promoting the fight. And these people have me under a great deal of pressure. I'm Great Britain. That's who we are. I don't care what they're doing. We have to bring them into a straight line. Because where this country is going with this behavior, the warriors.
The upcoming fight between Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn, set for April 26, 2025, at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in London, brings back a famous family feud from the 1990s. As fans get excited, Chris Eubank Sr. has spoken out about serious concerns. He's worried about the match, especially about the weight difference and the safety of the fighters.
Oh mate, that'd be legendary. That'd be legendary. I'd love that.
We know that your dad has had two very, very famous fights in the 90s with Chris Sr. You're, 3 or 4 weight divisions away from Chris Eubank Jr. at the moment, but you are 19 and you will continue to grow and you will continue to put weight on. What chance of you fighting Chris Eubank Jr. at some point in the future?
Oh mate, that'd be legendary. That'd be legendary. I'd love that. I'd love that. But there's so many obstacles I've got to get first before we can even consider that. Yeah. So far it's just a fantasy for the British public. But who knows? Who knows what the future holds?
Back in the early 1990s, British boxing was thrilled by the rivalry between Chris Eubank Sr. and Nigel Benn. Their very different styles led to 2 unforgettable fights. Eubank Sr. won the first in 1990 by TKO, and the 1993 rematch ended in a draw. Now, their sons are following in their footsteps. A fight between Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn has been talked about for years. It was first planned for October 2022, but Benn tested positive for a banned substance that increases testosterone. He blamed it on eating too many eggs, a claim that caused debate. Later, the UK anti-doping agency cleared him, allowing the fight to be rescheduled.
An entertaining matchup.
Why is it a mismatch?
Because of ability, because of weight classes. Chris Jr. is a middleweight and a super middleweight. He's naturally a super middleweight. So, he's having to starve himself to come down and, with all the catch weights and all of this stuff, it's a mismatch. He is operated at world level. He's been in with the likes of George Groves and, the list goes on. It's a mismatch in ability and weight class.
How is your relationship with your dad now?
We're in a weird, we're in a strange place in our lives in the moment. It's very hard to kind of, go through an entire career being with your old man and then to not have him around anymore in terms of, the boxing side of things. But I just felt that that's what I needed. I felt like I wanted to, and I would say this to him as well, I was like, listen, I'm going to write a book one day. The book can't be everything that my dad said I should do, I did. Mm-hmm. I've got to find out on my own. I've got to make my own choices. I've got to write my own future.
Chris Eubank Sr. has strongly spoken against the fight, saying he's worried about how it's being set up and the dangers it may pose. His main concern is the catch weight of 157 lbs, which is 3 lbs under Eubank Jr.'s usual weight. Eubank Sr. says dropping this much weight is dangerous and can harm a fighter's health. He believes the promoters are more focused on money than safety. In an interview, he even said, "You tried to murder my boys, I'm coming for you." Cutting weight can cause dehydration and poor performance, which can lead to injury. Eubank Sr. believes this fight breaks the rules and should not go ahead as planned.
For 8 pounds? You better watch out, dreadlocks. You better watch out, because we are come for you. Sorry. It's my mother's tongue again. That's it comes through. You'd better watch out, because we're not playing. We're real, and we are a terror. And the procedure will be parliamentary. Rastafari.
Eubank Sr. keeps speaking out against the match between his son and Conor Benn, the son of his old rival Nigel Benn. His main worry is about the agreed weight of 157 lbs. He thinks this is unsafe and could risk his son's life. Dropping below 160 lbs is dangerous, especially for someone who is 33. He even offered to pay the cost to cancel the match, but Nigel Benn still wants the fight to happen. Eubank Sr. also criticized the promoters, saying they care more about money than fighter health. He believes setting up such a risky match shows poor judgment.
For the Metro newspaper, and in that interview, Conor walked in, and I said to Conor, and I was saying to Nigel, please, don't do this. You know what it is to, my son is 33. For him to drop 3 pounds beneath 160 puts his life in danger. And Nigel said, sorry, if he doesn't take the fight, if he's above that, then he's going to have to pay a forfeit of £300,000. And I said, well, I'm very happy to pay that. So please, stand down. I was speaking to both of them. Nigel said, no, he's not standing down. He said he signed a contract. He's a grown man. So I said, Nigel, please, my king, please, don't do this.
Besides disagreeing with the weight issue, Eubank Sr. has suggested other options for the fighters. He believes Conor Benn should stay in his natural weight class of 147 lbs and fight others in the welterweight division. He even mentioned Harlem, Eubank, his nephew, who fights at welterweight and has challenged Benn recently. The talk around this fight has also brought up drama within the Eubank family, adding more emotion to the event.
My concern for Eubank is the amount of weight this boy's got to cut to come down to, I think the fight's made at 160 pounds, is that right? Right. So he's got to come down from 100, from whatever his walking round weight is. Let's say he walks around at 180 pound when he's out of training. That's like 20 pound weight difference, right? That he's got to lose. It's not safe. It's not. He can't possibly be at his physically strongest. He can't, and he's really putting himself on the line, right? Because when you're weight weakened, I know I've been weight drained in fights previously, so I'm speaking from a point of reference. When you're weight drained, it doesn't matter what you eat on the day, it doesn't make you stronger.
Eubank Jr. has said he wants his father to be in his corner for the fight, since it means a lot to him to continue their family's boxing history. But Eubank Sr.'s concerns about the fight have caused problems between them. Some reports say they're not close anymore. Before the fight, Eubank Jr. smashed an egg on Benn's face during a press event. It referred to Benn's past doping controversy. Eubank Jr. was fined $100,000 for this act. The move led to a fight between the two, boxers increasing the drama and media attention.
Boxing Media Hub here with some breaking news. So Chris Eubank Jr. has been fined £100,000 by the British Boxing Board of Control for slapping Conor Benn with an egg. So who's the one with egg on their face now?
Where's that money going? Because £100,000 is the kind of money that can make a huge difference to a huge amount of boxing clubs up and down the country that are the grassroots of the sport, that are getting kids off the street that need to be off the street and onto the straight and narrow. Boxing clubs are, for many people, more than just a sports club. They are social workers, they're therapy, they're all these things, and yet that £100,000 is never going to be put into their pocket.
Former boxer Paul Smith found the egg incident funny. He said he laughed his head off when Eubank Jr. hit Benn with the egg. Smith called it poetic and ironic because of Benn's past excuse that eggs caused his failed doping test. He seemed to enjoy the moment, though others didn't agree.
That slap, I personally do not call it a slap. I call that a marketing stunt, and that have helped to publicize or market or sell the fight way more, because Chris had to do that, and he basically made the fight very, very personal. And now we don't have to say it's because of their father's legacy, but hey, Conor will say, you slapped me and you tried to embarrass me, and then now I have to fight and show you that I am a better fighter and boxer than you. But I feel like also that is the best 100k Chris Eubank Jr. have ever spent. Listen, I would like to know your ringside opinions in a comment. Let me know what you think about that.
However, not everyone in boxing thought it was funny. Liam Smith, another boxer, said that while the egg slap was a bit funny, it wasn't right for a professional event. He felt it crossed a line and didn't belong in a sport where respect is important.
It's a fight that I'll be watching. I'll be there, obviously, on the night. But if I wasn't there,
what have you made of the antics?
I would be watching it.
What have you made of the antics? Do you think? I mean,
I've seen worse. I said about Chisora in throwing the table towards Dylan White. I was filming it. I was sitting in the front row of the press conference. I was at the press conference, and I was laughing and joking about it. And afterwards, it was okay. It was a bit of a rant by Chisora, but we expect that from Chisora. I'm not going to lie, when it happens, I laughed my head off. I absolutely laughed my head off.
I did too.
I thought it was quite poetic. I thought what happened was quite funny. It wasn't dangerous. It wasn't something that, like, I had Nigel saying I thought he glassed him. I can understand by the noise of it. Things happen fast in the heat of a moment. I get it. But afterwards, all's well that ends well, really. And it's created a lot more fuss about the fight, a lot more column inches, a lot more press and publicity. All publicity is good publicity. But then the board come in and think they can find a fight at £100,000 for it, and that's their prerogative, but it didn't sit right with me.
Nigel Benn wasn't happy with what happened. He said this kind of behavior hurts the image of boxing. He believes fighters should show respect and act professionally, especially in public events. While he understands the personal history, he thinks the focus should be on boxing skills. When Eubank Jr. threw the egg, Nigel felt protective of his son, but also knew Conor needed to handle it himself. He sees these challenges as part of his son's growth both in boxing and in life.
I'm just glad that Conor didn't get hold of him. That's why I'm glad that Conor didn't get hold of him, because Conor was going some. But then I had the opportunity to go, then the big bounce come and chop my head off of me.
After being fined, Eubank Jr. said he didn't understand why the penalty was so high. He said, "It's definitely an unusually high number." He pointed out that others had done worse and been fined less. He explained that the egg slap wasn't just for fun. He called it a symbol against cheating and said, "If you cheat, you're going to get exposed."
I'm sitting up here today on a stage with two of the scummiest characters in boxing, in my opinion. A drug cheat and a man who did everything in his power to help him get away with it. So me throwing an egg at somebody who absurdly claims that is the reason why he failed 2 drugs tests, because of contaminated eggs, I think that's light. And I think that's deserved. He deserved the embarrassment of what happened. You know, if I had an opportunity to do it again, I would.
In a June 2023 interview, Chris Eubank Sr. shared his deep disappointment in his son's boxing choices and training. He said his son stopped listening to him and ignored important advice. David Hay once told Eubank Sr. that Eubank Jr. no longer spars and is surrounded by people who never challenge him. Eubank Sr. said this arrogance led to his son's loss. He was upset that Eubank Jr. chose Roy Jones Jr. as his trainer instead of him. Eubank Sr. believes his son could have done better if he had listened. He even called him a charlatan and said without his help, Eubank Jr. wouldn't have made so much money.
You lost to a fighter called Billy Saunders. You shouldn't have lost that fight. You lost it because you were disobedient to the plan that I gave you. You started fighting after the 6th round to prove to me that you could beat him at any time. I expressly put down in solid words, you are not fighting Billy Saunders, you are fighting the promoter. And you will not beat the promoter. As they say, you'd have to knock him out to get a draw. That's the humor they use. That's the influence of the promoters. And you gave him the first 6 rounds. You know, as far as I'm concerned, the fight belongs to Harlem the Gold Eubank, and you should be fighting Billy Joe Saunders and record a win over him, which you should have in the first instance. What more can I say?
Chris Eubank Jr. has talked openly about the growing distance between him and his father. Their relationship has been hurt by personal issues, career choices, and a need for independence. A big issue was Eubank Sr.'s strong opposition to the April 26 fight. This match is symbolic because of their father's history in the 1990s. Eubank Jr. said his father hasn't supported him for a long time. He said, "We don't talk," and found it odd that a father who lost a son wouldn't speak to his other kids. He said he wanted to make his own name and career, separate from his dad's shadow.
He was not happy with that decision. That's the start of it. Then you have the situation with my brother passing away. That affected him in a deep way, affected all of us.
I talked to him around that time, and I could tell he was profoundly impacted by that.
That's right. Mental health is a real thing. That incident, coupled with the fact that we were already not seeing eye to eye, destroyed a large part of the relationship. And it still hasn't seemed to have recovered, unfortunately.
Have you made any attempt to get back together with him?
Of course.
Has he rebuffed that?
Teddy Atlas, in an interview with pro boxing fans, gave his thoughts on the Eubank Jr. vs. Benn fight. He said it will be exciting, with personal emotions and a strong backstory. He thinks Eubank Jr. will use his speed and distance to stay in control, throwing counters and punches from different angles. Meanwhile, Benn will try to come forward, attack the body, and slow Eubank down. Atlas supports Eubank Sr.'s decision to boycott the fight. He understands the health risks tied to tough weight. Cuts and respects Eubank Sr.'s desire to protect his son from harm in the ring.
It's got the history with the fathers, the two fathers that were just iconic British fighters, great fighters. So it's got everything to draw the people in, to watch that fight. I mean, you got one guy, if I was to real fast give my thoughts on it without having gotten into it too much, Eubanks, wants to probably keep it on the outside as much as he can and use his skill sets to,
let Conor go and have his illustrious career here in the United Kingdom and then in the United States, because he beats them all. That's how fantastic I think he is. I've always backed you, Conor. I've always backed you. Okay? You're sensible. If it's true that you've said things about me which are not complimentary, I don't mind that. I'm looking at the people that you're around. Here it is. You know the spirit world. That's how I know you're an honest man. The people around you are part of a gang. It's a team thing. You're the mark. Okay? The only person who's going to look out for you is you, supposed to be your dad, and people like me. You can trust me. Yeah, you've seen me get up in a fight I can't win and walk back into the fire. You can trust me. I'm not going to give you I'm not going to mislead you. I'm a lawman.
Eubank Jr. has changed his training for this fight. After being coached by Roy Jones Jr., he is now training under his father again. Jones had warned him not to underestimate Benn's punching power. He reminded Eubank Jr. of Benn's knockout of chriseubankjr. Jones said Eubank needs to stay alert. The money involved in this fight is big. Eubank Jr. agreed to a 55-45 purse split in his favor because of his experience, but Benn hasn't fully agreed yet. He might want a better deal. The winner could get a fight with someone like Canelo Alvarez. This fight is more than a match. It's about family, fame, and legacy.